Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. Up first, the breakup map here showing, of course, Tanana River blue all the way out to the Yukon, and areas of ice along the Yukon River here with some open areas stretching all the way back to the Porcupine River there. And again, everything continuing to break up pretty slowly with multiple breakup fronts, so nothing jamming too badly at all. So not much going on in the way of any flooding and nothing really expected, and still waiting on the rivers up to the north and back to the northwest. On satellite imagery today, we had a couple of systems. Slow moving system here across the southeast coast, actually a portion of that moving northwestward, and low pressure developing up over the northeast interior with rain and snow becoming mostly just snow out toward the Arctic coast, and some of that extending on toward the central coastal areas. Otherwise clearing behind that, a few clouds, isolated showers developing over the mountainous terrain from the Alaska range, say up to the White Mountains, and then even more sunshine back to the northwest. Not bad along the west coast here. And then this area of cloud associated with a pretty vigorous upper level low coming off the Bering Sea right in this area, but a lot of moisture expanding northward there and spreading eastward to the Alaska range. And places like Stony picked about 0.4 of an inch in the last 24 hours with that. And otherwise just mostly a few hundredths of an inch being reported across the Yukon Delta, although Cape Newenham picked up half an inch of rain with this system as it came through, and clouds, showers being on the increase here across south central Alaska, specifically Cook Inlet, on up into the valleys, and then back to the west, again, as I mentioned, clearing out here, drying out back along the west coast. Low stuff here out along the coast and offshore from Nunivak Island, and extending, looks like just about up to St. Lawrence Island there, but some clearing there at Nome and Norton Sound. Not much going on out in the Bering Sea, just some scattered clouds with clearing, and moisture along and to the south of the Aleutian Range. We'll see that pushing mostly to the east, kind of a split condition going on here, southerly flow, one branch taking off to the northeast and the other one pulling back to the west around the north side of a low pressure area that's farther to the south. And that's going to pretty much continue. Looks like something a little bit stronger will be pulling up in toward the Aleutians. But for today, here's that frontal boundary, triple point right about there. This area sliding east-northeast. That area staying just to the south of the Aleutians. Looked like a little bit of moisture got up to the Adak-Atka area, but most of it staying to the south. Wind's not all that strong at all with that either with that system. And then we've got the trough here coming into the west-southwest interior. Thunderstorms breaking out just about all through the cloud mass there with lightning strikes, of course, some heavier precipitation with that. And again, areas picking up maybe up to a half an inch, 0.4 to half an inch of rain. And then along the North Gulf Coast, Cordova picked up some rain today, but the heaviest rainfall amounts down here across the Panhandle. Petersburg had just almost 0.8 of an inch of rain, again, in the 24-hour period ending at 4 o'clock this afternoon. By contrast, Juneau just 14 hundredths, but Annette and Ketchikan both picked up about 2/3 of an inch of rain, so some soaking rains down in that area. And then for tonight, we'll see that system begins to edge slowly eastward, so look for a tapering off in the showery conditions across most of the Panhandle, maybe a little bit of clearing, but don't count on too much. Stays wet up along the North Gulf Coast here, and also look for some showers and areas of rain, possible thunderstorms to sit in the valley, Cook Inlet areas, on up in toward the Talkeetna Mountains, as well as pushing up into across the Tanana Valley as that area upper level low and that moisture pushes eastward. And then that'll start drying out across Cook Inlet. There'll be lingering showers on the upslope areas of the Alaska Range here, especially eastern Kuskokwim Valley over to the mountains, to a lesser extent along the Aleutian Range. High pressure, light winds, dry for the Alaska Peninsula, up across the Pribilofs, much of the Bering Sea. Very light winds, light variable conditions, with turning easterly though as you get down toward this frontal boundary there. Getting a little bit more of a gradient now showing up here, mostly from Adak on out to the west there. So winds will be picking up a little bit with that, but not too much here. Just a chance of rain for the eastern Aleutians, the Kulskeet, Unalaska, and Dutch Harbor. And the Arctic coast, that area of moisture sliding up. So best chance of snow here, central onto the east. And could see a little bit of accumulation with that. Also mixed precipitation with just to the south here into the eastern Brooks Range area, and some scattered showers across the Yukon Flats over to about the Eagle area. And then as that upper level trough pulls into the Gulf of Alaska, it begins to develop a trough here, or a front beginning to form with the moisture, and that's going to be moving right into the southeast coast tomorrow. And looks like rain all the way from the Queen Charlotte's Dixon entrance right on up to Skagway, Haines, and more showery though toward Yakutat. But the heaviest rainfall amount will be over the central and southern southeast coast of the entire area. Looks pretty wet for tomorrow, and this area is slowly improving, but lowest, of course, lowest flying condition will be tomorrow morning, and then gradually improving throughout the afternoon as the area of moisture dissipates. Still looking at showers here scattered along the coastal range. Isolated thunderstorms still possible. Quite showery over the eastern Tanana Valley, 40-mile country to about Eagle. But again, that'll be all in a decreasing mode throughout the day, and even less of that back to the west. Pretty good conditions, sunshine there, Koyukuk, Kobuk Valley, all the way back to the northwest. No change to the Arctic coast. That area of moisture slipping off to the north and dissipating. So just again back to that areas of flurries and fog. And nice light winds down through the Bering Strait. St. Lawrence Island could see some sunshine. Better chance of that for the Seward Peninsula, and definitely here for the southwest interior. Looking good back into some sun here for south central Alaska, Cook Inlet, maybe Prince William Sound as well, all the way down to Kodiak Island. Offshore northwest winds there, definitely clearing it out and helping it warm up a little bit. Light winds under the ridge here from Bristol Bay up to just south of St. Lawrence Island. And right on the other side of that ridge, we've got that front and some moisture spreading rain into the Alaska Peninsula. Wind's not bad though with this again. And that front will lift north of the Aleutians. Chance of rain maybe reaching the Pribilofs tomorrow, and then northeast winds a little bit brisker, maybe up to 25-30 knots out to the west. And the outlook for Monday, that low system pulls eastward here to about this position with a center of about 989 millibar. So small craft advisories possible here with a front and narrow band there along the Alaska Peninsula. Definitely more rain spreading into that area with rain up to the Pribilofs, and then a pretty strong trough swinging around the southwest quadrant of that low. So looking at 25, probably just 30 knot winds here west of Adak, with rain changing to showers, drying out toward Shemya. Interior, especially the central and western areas, dry conditions, lots of sunshine here from Bristol Bay right up to the Brooks Range, western North Slope areas. And of course some marine clouds out here around St. Lawrence Island and down along the coast. Mostly sunny, south central Alaska, Cook Inlet, the valleys, Kodiak Island. Mostly sunny, possibly getting into more of a southerly flow south-southeast. Right now looks like all the rain-producing clouds will stay to the south, at least at this point in time, but maybe look for an increase in the clouds throughout the day there. Otherwise, variably cloudy North Gulf Coast to partly to mostly sunny into the northern panhandle, and risk of some showers still hanging tough there over the Stewart, Hyder area. Possibly Ketchikan and Annette, but mostly to the east, and that's just a chance at this point. And the sunshine back to the north. Isolated, really isolated showers now by comparison developing along the Alaska Range. No thunderstorms at all, and these just maybe not even a sure thing as well. Dry conditions, that is a sure thing, with more sunshine than what you see tomorrow. And for the temperatures down across the Panhandle today, mid to upper 40s there, 46 at Klawock, Stewart up to 55, Sitka 48, State Capital 49 degrees, but Skagway up to 52. Mid to upper 40s North Gulf Coast from Yakutat over to Cordova. Valdez right around 50 this afternoon at 4 p.m., while the Copper River Basin, McCarthy, Gulkana 61 above. Gunsight 51, 59 at Talkeetna, 50 in Palmer, and then a cool 43 degrees at Kenai with 48 down at Homer. Mid to upper 40s Kodiak Island. Tanana Valley, kind of upper 50s to lower 60s there, 61 at Token Northway. 59 Fairbanks, about 60 there at Tanana, and on up to the north, 46 at Fort Yukon, with 43 over at Arctic Village, but Bettle's up to 58 degrees. And Arctic Coast, again, like yesterday, mid to upper 20s across the entire way there. Lower to mid 40s up here over the north. Kotzebue up to 44. And Nome just at 38 there, which 10 degrees warmer than the 28 they had at Wales, 34 at Savunga. And then 50 degrees at McGrath, otherwise 40s here all across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Again, the clouds, precipitation with that, falling to 39 at Macoriac. Out in the Bering Sea, Pribilos, 40 at St. George, 45 at St. Paul. That temperature matched also at Dutch Harbor, 48 at Atka, and 40s on out for the remainder of the area, as well as the Alaska Peninsula, on Alaska 45, and lower 40s, cooler up toward the King Salmon area. For lows tonight, 40s, upper 30s to lower 40s here from the eastern interior, to lower 30s, lower to mid out along the southwest coast. North Slope Arctic coast in the 20s, 30s for the Pribilofs, and near 40 for the Aleutians, and mostly in the lower 40s for the southeast coast. Highs tomorrow, more sunshine back here to the west, so mid to upper 60s, especially across the Kuskokwim Valley, up into the west central interior areas. A little cooler here, lingering clouds and showers, keeping the temperatures down, but more sunshine, definitely pushing those temperatures in the mid 60s for the Susitna Valley, and possibly even down to the Kenai Peninsula, depending on how much clearing we get here. But for the southeast coast, with all that clouds and rain moving in, temperatures will stay in the 50s. For flying weather, here's that batch of IFR that'll be developing and pushing eastward toward the Panhandle late tonight, early tomorrow morning. And marginal VFR will be on the increase, mostly along the coast, and marginal VFR up over the south central areas to the Alaska Range. Also over the 40-mile country, North Slope Arctic coast, good chance of some IFR extending down to St. Lawrence Island, actually all the way down along the coast, do some low stuff out here, and then the moisture out over the Aleutians. For tomorrow afternoon, that IFR, or the marginal VFR, covering all of the southeast coast with IFR along the coast, and marginal VFR in a decreasing mode, but hanging on to the eastern interior there all the way down to about Yakutat. Good VFR breaking out through the central interior, lower conditions out over the Bering Sea, seeing that area of IFR that you see usually throughout much of the summer here, definitely starting to build from the Aleutians right up through the Strait and the Arctic coast and North Slope. For Anatuvik, pass open there with Adigan, the same forecast, VFR, clear skies, mostly clear. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, possibly marginal in the morning, but I think by tomorrow morning it'll be VFR for both passes. Rainy, same forecast. Windy, a risk of some marginal VFR tomorrow. Thought I'd be optimistic and call it VFR. And for Isabel, starting out marginal for sure, becoming VFR. That Mentasta, though, will probably be marginal the entire day. Tanita, marginal VFR improving. And for Portage, IFR to VFR. Chilkoot and White, marginal. For the freezing levels, cold pool here, that upper level trough coming eastward, so 2,000 feet over the northern Panhandle. Warmer in the interior, back down to 2,000 feet North Slope and Arctic coast. Warmer over the eastern Bering Sea, and then 2,000 feet again, sliding in out to the west. Icing above about 5,000 feet along the Aleutians there, from roughly Kiska Island all the way over to Unalaska, with the probably the best chance here through the central areas. None over the interior, possibly, maybe on the Arctic coast, and then mixed icing here over the eastern areas, again decreasing throughout the day. And the southeast coast, though, expect some occasional light to isolated moderate rime icing of about 7,000 feet. And for the jet stream, that upper low that came out of the Bering Sea tracking eastward across the southwest interior today, tracks to about this position, roughly just south of Yakutat or west of Elfin Cove tomorrow afternoon. And of course, pushing the front with it and then drying out behind here with the main jet, just coming up toward the eastern Aleutians, then curving off to the southeast. For the 9,000-foot winds, not a lot of wind associated with this system, maybe up to 20 knots there off the north coast. Otherwise, 10 knots, light variable up through the interior. Easterlies 10 to 20 on the Arctic coast. Otherwise, back to light variable to west-northwest, pretty light. Could be, probably will be a little more wind at 9 and 3,000 feet over the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, and generally the Kodiak Island area, but not all that strong. Strongest winds here out of the east with this system north of the Aleutian Chain with 25 knots down to about AKwx. And again, 3,000 feet easterlies here up to 35 knots. That'll be in advance of the front, which will be north of the Aleutians tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, about the same pattern, easterlies 15 to 20 Arctic coast, and not much wind over the southeast coast. Turbulence-wise, none to speak of here. Maybe the Aleutian Chain, light to isolated moderate, becomes a little more moderate out here from AKwx on out to Shemya. After the break, I'll be back in the marine forecasts.
The 70 nautical mile trip to Skagway from Juneau is fairly straightforward. One noteworthy item is the lack of beaches in the area. The slope of the mountains continues to the bottom of the canal, causing small rocky outcroppings in most areas. There are a couple of small dirt strips located at Glacier Point and Endicott on the west side and Katsahine on the east side. Flying up the Lynn Canal to Taya Inlet is the preferred route to Skagway. The Lynn Canal has several prominent reporting points that are used by the local operators and private pilots.
Second 635, the Islander, the departure end is headed for Portland Island, runway 26, cleared for takeoff. 635, Roger, taxi into position for you.
After departing Juneau to the west, you should fly to the right side of Lynn Canal, close to the land mass. Utilize the hemispheric rule for determining your flying altitude. The first prominent departure reporting points are Lena Point, T Harbor, Eagle Beach, and Benjamin Island. Next, you will approach Berners Bay, Bridget Point, and Echo Cove, which will be to the right. After passing Berners Bay, Point St. Mary's is the next reporting point. Keep in mind, Berners Bay is important as a reporting point. Most poor weather conditions for the Lynn Canal are generated in this area. Adiabatic winds descending from the ice fields to the north of Berners Bay can create fog or turbulence depending on the temperature dew point spread. Tour operators will normally report Sherman Point on the other side of Berners Bay and Eldred Rock Lighthouse. Sullivan Island is to the left. The canal splits at this point, with Chilkat Inlet leading to Haines to the left, while Chilkoot Inlet bears right to Skagway.
Harbor 1004 Haines.
Continuing to follow the shoreline to the right, the canal splits again, forming Lutak Inlet to the left, which is a dead end. On the right is Taya Inlet, which takes you to Skagway. Once in Taya Inlet, report Taya Point and fly to the left side of the inlet to conform with prevailing traffic in the area. When approaching Skagway, be alert for tour operators in the area and for helicopter traffic departing and arriving at Skagway. The traffic pattern is at 1,000 feet with right-hand traffic for runway 19 to avoid the town of Skagway. It will appear that the pattern is close to the mountain, and it is. You will find that you are quite close to the trees on the downwind.
Approach Skagway.
A close-in base turn around the water tanks to almost immediate final is needed to avoid overshooting the final approach. This is a tight, narrow canyon that consistently generates turbulent winds in the pattern and on the runway. Be aware that there is a bridge with automobile and truck traffic at the end of the final approach end for runway 19. The bridge is used as a final reporting point. There's a school to the left of the runway just beyond the bridge that must not be overflown. Since the runway is narrow and 3,700 feet long, it gives the appearance that you must land on the approach end numbers in order to stop by the end of the runway.
Welcome back. That system coming eastward tomorrow. Kick the winds up mostly on the south coast to 25 knots out of the south and 9-foot seas, but those seas will extend northward where the winds drop back to 15 to southeast 10 up to the north. Southeast 20 or so coming into Clarence Strait, otherwise pretty light to the central inside waters, and then back up to 20 knots for northern Lynn Canal. Monday, same thing for Lynn Canal, but northwest on the light side for the north coast. Northerlies at 20, becoming northeast on the extreme south coast. Northwest 20 for Clarence Strait, 15 to 20 out of the south for the Stevens Passage. Light variable winds in the forecast tomorrow. Cook Inlet, northern Cook Inlet, well actually all of Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast. And then we get a zone of small craft advisory winds here, Kodiak Island, westerlies 25, the Barren Islands back to Kachemak Bay. And then for Monday, really light winds, high pressure out here over the Gulf, so south to southwest flow, up the inlet at about 10, nothing strong at all, or pretty much variable, west at 10 knots from the North Gulf Coast. Seas pretty slight, just 2 to 5 feet at the most. And then for Bristol Bay tomorrow, west 15, northwest coming down to 15, going variable late in the day for the area from Castle Cape to Sitkinak. Otherwise, 15 to 20 knot easterlies for the peninsula. Southeast 25, mostly on the north side as that front approaches from the west. 20 knots Bristol Bay, 20 knots from Cape Sarachef to Sitkinak. And for the eastern Aleutians, east-southeast 25 knots increasing to 20 to 30 knots here over the central Aleutians, northeast 30 knots from right around Adak here all the way out to Shemya. And then swinging around to the northwest, 25 to 30, 9 to 10 foot seas here west of Adak, south to southwest at 20, 15 to 20 as you approach the eastern Aleutians, but still along that front there, southeast 25 near Unalaska with lighter winds to the west. North or southwest coast, northwest at 10, light and variable for the northern Bering Sea, east 15 for the Pribilofs, west 15 St. Lawrence Island. And for Monday, east at 10, northeast 20 for St. Matthew Island to the west there. Small craft advisories for St. Paul, St. George, easterlies at 25, 15 to 20 knots out of the east along the southwest coast. Eastern Beaufort Sea coastline, brisk wind advisories for 25 knot easterly winds. West side, same pattern, dropping back to 20, swinging around to the west there for Kotzebue Sound at 15. And then for Monday, really kind of light and variable here in the west, still east on the west side to northeast central coast. Light variable winds for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, now west to east. And then for tonight, low Low clouds, fog, IFR, snow for the Arctic coast, a little bit more mixed here as you get up toward the Brooks Range. And then showers, isolated thunderstorms coming across south central Alaska up in toward the Tanana Valley, that all shifting eastward. Developing system here in the Gulf of Alaska with that upper level low, which will push a pretty good front into the area there with, again, bringing those winds up 25 knots or so on the south coast, all the way across Dixon Entrance, maybe 25 to 30 there into Stevens Passage with the heaviest rainfall amounts to the south, but it's going to be wet all the way up to Skagway, more showery in a decreasing mode here along the North Gulf Coast. And then we got showers, isolated thunderstorms, slowly decreasing, but probably hanging on here from the northern Copper River Basin up along Delta, east of Fairbanks, maybe up to Eagle. Definitely drier and more sun back to the west, and back to the flurries and occasional fog for the Arctic coast. And this system spreading more in the way of light rain than wind into the Alaska Peninsula, with a wind field north of the Aleutians and high pressure along the coast, which Monday, more rain for the Alaska Peninsula. The system a little bit stronger. Small craft advisories to the west of that. Lots of sunshine over the interior, with even the panhandle drying out pretty good. That's a look at the weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.